Good morning. My name is Elizabeth Yoss, and I'd like to welcome you to First Parish in Lexington. As a Unitarian Universalist congregation, we engage each other in the exploration of differing spiritual practices and philosophies, and welcome you wherever you are on your journey of faith. For our inclusive community of faith, our differences inspire us to deeper understanding of ourselves and the interconnected world of which we are all a part. Together, we seek to find ways to raise our voices and to offer our hands in service so that the power of our love can bend that arc of the moral universe just a little closer towards justice. To our families with children with us today, welcome. We celebrate the joy and life that children bring into our space, and our worship is enlivened by your presence. At the back of the church, there is a rocking chair if you need one, and we have a staff nursery downstairs for babies and toddlers. The staircase is in the vestibule in the back. We also have programming for children of all ages, and in the order of service, you'll see when the differing age groups depart. Children are also welcome to stay in the service with you. If you are a visitor this morning, welcome. Please join us following the service for light refreshments and conversation in Parish Hall through these doors. There are many ways to find out more about our congregation and the upcoming events. I encourage everyone to look at the insert in your order of service. Look at the fplex.org website, our weekly update emails, and also our monthly newsletter in Focal Point. And also, please visit our welcome kiosk in Parish Hall if you have any questions. This afternoon, we have many wonderful activities happening. I want to draw your eyes to the newcomer drop-in today, which will be in Anne's office. It is an opportunity for the members and friends and the minister to speak to anyone who feels new to First Parish or Unitarian Universalism. It will be at 11:45. And you can find out how you can be part of this vibrant UU congregation. Also, at 2 o'clock, we have a wonderful concert, Christmas Through the Ages, featuring Rip, our music director, Beth Walsh-Austin, and Dave Meharry, members of our choir. The suggested donation is $10. It is a postponement from last night's activity, was from Monroe Saturday nights. That will be at 2 o'clock here in the sanctuary. Then at 4 o'clock, we have our annual Dan Fenn reading of the Christmas Carol. That begins at 4 o'clock in the fireplace. We're in Parker Hall. That is free, and light refreshments will be served. All right, so we also have today, this month, a special collection. Once a month, we commit ourselves to service beyond the walls, having a special plate collection go to an organization that reflects the change we would like to see in the world. I would like to welcome Helen Cohen and Greta Hagen from the UU Urban Ministry because they will be the recipient of our December collection.
It's my great pleasure this morning to be able to introduce you to Greta Hagen, who is Communications and Development Director of the Urban Ministry, which is our social justice outreach to the city, which was founded in 1826 as the Benevolent Fraternity. They've started a wonderful new program this year called Believe in Success for domestic abuse survivors, which I have been involved in. It's very exciting and very moving. I have learned so much. And Greta is going to tell us a little bit more about it. After church, she has some material out in the Parish Hall that you can look at, and at 12 o'clock, we will meet in the parlor for anybody who wants to discuss more about it.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm honored to be able to share a few words about Believe in Success, which is our bilingual job and education readiness training program for survivors of domestic violence, especially women and LGBTQ survivors. And I want to just take this opportunity to thank you all for dedicating today's offering to our program. Believe in Success was born out of research and focus groups that we conducted across the greater Boston area, and it really fills a gap in services to survivors healing from abuse. Shelter and transitional living programs, including our own renewal house, which Talk to you about volunteer opportunities, especialmente si se habla español, but also if you speak English, we need your help in our classrooms, and I'd love to tell you more about that. I want to leave you with some words from one of our current participants. She's in our first cohort and graduates on December 21st. We are really proud of her, and we're proud of the whole cohort. Alicia shared with me the following words. The other day, it came to me the phrase, "To thine own self be true." And that's why I'm here, to be an overcomer. And when I'm here, everybody has been through the same situation. And I know I'm not the only one this happened to. I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. I have a dream for myself, and that's why I'm here. So I want to thank you all for supporting overcomers like Alicia and everyone else that is there, and also for supporting us. We're truly your urban ministry, and we're very, very proud to do this work with you. Thank you.
If you're going to write a check during the offertory, and I hope you will all give as generously as you can, make it out to First Parish in Lexington and put in the memo line, "Believe in success." Thank you.
And as you're writing your checks, please take a moment and silence your cell phones, put them in worship mode. Thank you very much. All right, well, we know every Sunday we begin our time together by taking a minute to greet each other. When you hear the singing bowl rung 3 times, that is our signal to return to centering and quiet. Please greet those near you.
Into this time of our lives, we look for hope, hope that is poignant, wrenched from the hardships of our world. We long for hope that is visceral, touching the hands of those around us. Into this time of our world, we look for hope, hope that is reflective, echoing the kindness of a look or a smile. We long for hope that is transcendent, lifting us out of the depth of our fear. Let us wait in this time of Advent with the sure knowledge that we will be able to rejoice. Emmanuel shall come within as hope to dwell. Will you rise as you are able and join in singing our first hymn, number 225 in the Gray Hymnals, O come, Emmanuel.
I read to you for the chalice lighting words from the Reverend Dr. David Breeden. In this holiday season, may the darkness of winter be dispelled in this festival of lights, and may the darkness of ignorance be dispelled in the strength of compassion, reason, and sharing. Now please join me in singing the chalice lighting response that you'll see in the order of service.
Please be seated. Good morning. Who here has a computer at home? Raise those hands high. Okay, so let's ask the question. Who here does not have a computer at home? George, you're lying to me, boy, I know it. But Anne does not have a computer at home. So Anne, you get to live in a time most of us don't get to live in anymore. It's almost like a perpetual advent that you get to live in. How many of you have a computer in your pocket or your purse? We really don't get to live in that perpetual advent. What was that? I really didn't hear that. What was that? Nope. Okay. Well, because here's why. And for all of our young people, I want you to listen up. And I want to know, how many times a day do you say to your parents, can you look that up? Can you look that up for me? Where's that restaurant that we went to? Oh, let's just look it up. What's the name of that guy in that show? You know, the one who was also in that other show? Yeah, I'm just going to go look it up. Why does it snow? Oh, I'm just going to go look it up. Why does the moon rise where it does and the sun set where it does? I'm just going to go look it up. We don't sit with the unknown anymore, especially our kids. Not many of us. Anne gets to. Anne totally gets to sit in the unknown. I want to try that a little bit more. I want to say, I don't know, and then just sit with that. How many of you are willing to try that with me? It's a good time of year to try that. We're in the dark a lot this time of year. We're waiting. We're waiting for news. We're waiting for light. We're waiting in the dark. And if we say, why? Why do we live with information always at our fingertips? Can we not just step away from it, put it down, walk away, and say, I don't know, and I'm not going to find out until it's time for me to find out? Because when you need to know something, if you need to know something, you'll find out. You can sit with the not knowing. And here's the thing, there's a lot of academics in this room. How many people think of themselves as a bit of an academic in this space? I think a lot of you do. And we just constantly, we want to know all the time, just like our kids. They want to know everything. They want to know it 2 minutes ago. How come you haven't looked it up? How fast is your phone moving? Mom, are you using the Wi-Fi? Is it going fast enough? Let's just wait. And so I invite you all, except Anne. Anne's good. I invite you all to sit with not knowing things once in a while and experience Advent and waiting in the dark. I now invite our pre-kindergartners through second grade to depart for chapel. And Tony, it does look like I'm going to need you. So Tony will bring you guys down. Thank you very much.
we continue our time of prayer because, choir, that was wonderfully prayerful. Thank you. I have two concerns, pastoral concerns I'd like to share with you this morning. The first is for Phyllis Whitman, Susanna's mother, who is in hospice as we speak. And I want you to surround the family with prayer and love. As a long-term member of this church, sang in the choir and would have loved this music that we just heard this morning. So we hold Phyllis and all of the family in our hearts. And also special prayers for Lindsay, David Ruth and Rose Ruth's 3-month-old granddaughter who had open heart surgery this week and is intubated and receiving care, is stable at the moment, but it's a very difficult situation for all the Ruth family, the Rose family. So please hold all of them in prayer. This morning, after I share this prayer from the Iona community, I invite you to come to the rear of the sanctuary and light a candle to represent the joy or the sorrow that most sits upon your heart this morning. Will you join with me in prayer? When the world was dark and the city was quiet, you came. You crept in beside us, and no one knew. Only the few who dared to believe that God might do something different. Will you do the same this Christmas, O lover of my soul? Will you come into the darkness of today's world? Not the friendly darkness, as when sleep rescues us from tiredness, but the fearful darkness in which people have stopped believing that war will end, or that food will come, or that the government will change, or that the church cares. Will you come into that darkness and do something different to save your people from death and despair? Will you come into the quietness of this city, not the friendly quietness as when lovers hold hands, but the fearful silence when the phone has not rung, the letter has not come, the friendly voice no longer speaks, the doctor's face says it all. Will you come into that darkness and do something different, not to distract, but to embrace your people? And will you come into the dark corners and the quiet places of our lives? We ask this not because we are guilt-ridden or want to be, but because the fullness our lives long for depends on us being as open and vulnerable to you as you were to us when you came, wearing no more than diapers and trusting human hands to hold their maker. Will you come into our lives if we open them to you and do something different? When the world was dark and the city was quiet, you came. You crept in beside us. Do the same this Christmas, O lover of my soul. Do the same this Christmas. Amen.
Our reading this morning is a responsive reading. Your contribution is the phrase, "We are waiting." Let's say it together. We are waiting. This is the season of anticipation, of expecting, of hoping, of wanting. This is the time of expecting the arrival of something or someone. We are waiting. This is the time of living in darkness, in hues of unknowing, of being quiet, of reflecting on a year almost past, waiting for a new beginning, for a closing or an end. This is the time for digesting the lessons of days gone past, anticipating the future for which we are waiting, waiting for a world which can know justice, waiting for a lasting peace, waiting for the bridge to span the divides that separate us, waiting for a promise or a hope. For all of this, we are waiting. Oh, yes, sorry. Next, we are going to be singing a hymn together, which you will find in your order of service. We are going to be singing only verses 1, 3, and 4. And the 3rd and 8th grade youth will be departing during the last verse. So if you can find the insert of in your order of service, we will be singing that hymn.
Let all mortal flesh keep silence, and with fear and trembling stand. Ponder nothing earthly minded, for with blessing in his hand Christ our God to earth descendeth, our full homage to demand. These words from the 4th century are from the liturgy of St. James, the oldest surviving liturgy still in use today. Coming from the early Christian Church of Jerusalem, it is still being used in Eastern Orthodox churches around the world. Singing it this morning connects us with those ancient traditions of those who await the coming of the Christ child. And with mystical attention, it asks us to keep silence and to ponder nothing earthly minded. When I was a child, I remember singing this hymn with the choir of my Episcopalian church as people around us came up for communion. There is something about the ancient tune called Picardy, which still resonates with me. Based on the medieval Dorian mode, it has a haunting minor sound, which always raised an emotional reaction in me, and I can still feel that sense of reverence and awe that it inspires. The other wonderful thing about this tune is the way that Rip just finished playing the hymn. Instead of staying in the minor mode all the way through, he finished up with a raised F sharp in the chord, which made a more joyful ending in D major instead of staying in D minor. For all of you music nerds out there, you will remember that this is called a Picardy third, and it comes from the ending of this particular tune. The way that I experience this is with a lifting of my spirits as we close out the somberness and the darkness of the piece with a major chord. It's kind of like feeling a ray of sunlight pierce through a cloudy day. Rip, would you mind playing that ending for us again so we can hear how that works? Thank you. Now, in the 17th century, when this tune was first performed, music wasn't assigned a certain emotional hue. Minor sounds weren't interpreted to be particularly mournful, and major chords weren't necessarily joyous. The Picardy third was simply a way to play with the music, a way to be creative or spontaneous, a way to make changes within the framework of the classical music. And Baroque musicians always enjoyed making these changes when they could, a technique called ornamentation. For us now, we have more of a tendency to interpret minor chords as sad and major chords as happier. But ornamentation is still something musicians do, not just as a decoration, but as a stylistic interpretation. So I wonder what it would be like if we could practice that somehow in our own lives. When the times are feeling dark and depressing, when we're worried for our lives and our children's lives, I wonder if we can practice a kind of ornamentation as a spiritual practice. Can we take the minor modes of our songs and add that raised third, the major chord of happiness? Now, many of you will be decorating your homes this weekend, buying a Christmas tree, putting up lights, taking out those favorite nutcrackers or holiday tins to hold dozens of cookies. My favorite tree ornaments are the relics from those precious years of firsts. I have a pair of red high-top sneakers hung every year on my tree, still scuffed on the top of the toes from when my son used to crawl along. My daughter's first preschool picture is pasted on some glued-together popsicle sticks in a place of honor. I have a wreath of baby hands in green printed, with little red berries. These are the major chords of happiness that I unwrap every year. They help me adjust the minor notes of my life with an ornament which helps to elevate my mood. They connect me with times that were simpler, happier, more focused on direct care and feeding of my precious children. They connect me with those times and with the children that have grown and become the wonderful adults that they are. And when I miss my children terribly, these precious objects, the little red top sneakers and things, they connect me across the years to that shared sense of who we still are together as a family. Is this way of ornamenting our homes at Christmas a way to shift our attitudes from minor to major? Is it enough in these difficult times to find some comfort in the rituals of our family traditions? In this time of Advent, people of faith spend time adorning their sanctuaries. Thank you, Elizabeth and the team that worked on that this week. And ornamenting our homes. But we're also doing deeper work. For we are cultivating in our hearts the higher powers of faith, hope, love, and joy. And in these dark days, that seems more difficult than usual, doesn't it? This week has been yet another turbulent week on the national stage, as you know. We are seeing the darker side of politics as step by step things are getting crazier. I didn't think that was possible, but I think it's happening. More allegations of sexual misconduct, foreign policy in a tailspin, the loss of land considered sacred in Bears Ears National Monument, possible collusion with Russia, a travel ban now allowed to restrict immigration from Muslim countries, and a tax bill before the combined House and Senate, which will affect all of us here in Massachusetts. Any one of these issues would be enough for alarm, but thrown all together, it gives a wash of craziness that is making it hard for all of us to just stay in our own skin. And it seems that every time I sit down to focus on preparing my heart for Advent, another news flash comes across my computer screen and my attention is riveted to another disturbing item. And so I turn to the writings of my colleagues, seasoned ministers who help me wrestle with my own faith and ask me to hold on to the center, even in the whirlwind that is our time. One of these writers is David O. Rankin, whose book of meditation is called Dancing in the Empty Spaces. He writes this about Advent. During the Advent season, we celebrate the qualities of faith, hope, love, and joy. And yet these must be viewed through the prism of paradox. No faith is worthy without the capacity to doubt all things, for then it would be only credulity. No hope is possible without the specter of defeat in the wings, for then it is only dreaming. No love is strong enough without the dread of loss in our hearts, for then it is only passion. And no joy is complete without the certainty of sorrow in the future, for then it is only frivolity. Thus, it is wrong to mislead people with simplistic notions, for they distract us from the fullness of life. After all, the seas have storms, the clouds have lightning, and the roses have thorns forever. We are living in times which are indeed testing our capacity for faith, hope, love, and joy. When we contemplate joy, we must also anticipate sorrow. There are those of you today who are holding sorrow in the palm of your hand, and whose very center is so overwhelmed with sorrow that you cannot even behold the possibility of joy. But it is an act of faith to hold on to the possibility that joy will once again gain the upper hand, that moments of joy will break through the fog and the heaviness of sorrow, like a ray of light through the clouds, like the lift of a Picardy third. When we contemplate love, we must also anticipate loss. For what we hold on to with the strength of our passionate love, we know that someday we will lose. But we are bold people who value love so much that we open ourselves to love, even though we know that by doing so, we open ourselves to the possibility of loss. And when we contemplate hope, which seems so difficult right now, we must also acknowledge defeat. The hardest of all, my friends, is to hang on to faith in the midst of doubt, for we have no guarantee that what we hope for will indeed come to pass. We know that we will have loss in the midst of love and sorrow in the midst of joy, but the act of faith requires something more of us. In this time of Advent, we are invited to turn our hearts to the contemplation of faith, We cannot hold faith as a thing which will prevent us from suffering. I wish I could tell you that were so, but I can't. Suffering is part of our living, and we are here to live fully, which means that suffering will be a part of our lives. But suffering will not have the last word. Because as people of faith, our task is to turn from loss back to love, to turn from sorrow back to joy, and most certainly from defeat back to hope. One of my favorite readings on this is by Khalil Gibran in his iconic text, The Prophet. Here he writes about sorrow and joy. Your joy is your sorrow unmasked, and the selfsame well from which your laughter rises was oftentimes filled with your tears. How else can it be? The deeper that sorrow carves into your being, the more joy you can contain. Is not the cup that holds your wine the very cup that was burned in the potter's oven? And is not the lute that soothes your spirit the very wood that was hallowed with knives? When you are joyous, look deep in your heart, and you shall find it is only that which has given you sorrow that is giving you joy. And when you are sorrowful, look again in your heart, and you shall see that in truth you are weeping for that which has been your delight. So as we prepare our hearts and our homes this Advent, I hope that we will pay attention to the loss, the defeat, the sorrow, and the doubt in our lives. For we want to be ready to celebrate this coming time of winter holidays. And then to become ready, we need to pay attention to the lingering hardships that we all carry. We feel them in our heavy limbs, our numb fingers, our downcast eyes. We see them in the eyes of the homeless, the anger of the oppressed, the hospital wards of the despairing. We see this and know that it is around us and in us. But do not allow that to be all that you do. For we hold on to the promise of our faith. There is a power at work in the world, in this universe, which helps us move beyond the difficulties into something much, much better. There is a power in human hearts which is more than any one of us can fathom, a power ignited by the divine love of our creation. There is a future available for all of us in which we will be restored into the fullness of our humanity. But we need to make room in our own minds and in our own hearts and in our own souls for this transformation to happen. And that is the work of our faith. I hope that you will take time to work on the transformation of loss into love, of defeat into hope, of sorrow into joy, and of doubt into faith. For we all experience the difficulty of these elements in our lives. And like our musicians, we search for something like a raised F sharp, that way to lift our expression, our music, our experiences into some one thing which will allow us to experience the brightness of that Picardy third. Turn your gaze from things of this world and allow yourselves to connect with the power of the heart. Take time to ponder nothing earthly minded and trust that the strength of love, hope, faith, and joy will prevail. May your faith burn brightly for you this Christmastide. Amen, and blessed be.
We pass the plate during our worship service as a communal expression of generosity and in gratitude for the blessing of abundance. This morning's offering for the UU Urban Ministry will now be gratefully received. have come together on this beautiful wintry morning to gather in this place and this time to explore our spiritual journeys together and share in the wonder of the mysteries beyond our understanding. Please join me in saying the unison affirmation, which supports and enriches our explorations together. Please rise. Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine.
Will you join in singing our closing hymn, People Look East, number 226? We extinguish this chalice, but not the light of faith, hope, love, or joy. Will you sing with me our response printed in your order of service? The people that walked in darkness have seen a great light. May this light surround you, hold you, and inspire you. We live in faith, in hope, in love, and in joy, for we know that love, the guest, is on the way.